Okay, so have you ever really thought about what makes a god? Well, a god. Is it just about, inherent power like throwing lightning
Or
bolts?
is it something deeper, maybe even something we recognize in ourselves?
Exactly. And that's what we're exploring today, looking at Madeline Miller's Circe. We've got some fascinating excerpts here.
hmm It really paints a picture of gods, titans, nymphs, mortals, all interacting, or sometimes not interacting.
Our aim here is really to dig into the power dynamics, the family relationships, which are intense to say the least,
Yeah.
and how self-awareness kind of sparks in Circe herself.
It's quite a journey she goes on.
It really is. And to help us focus our thinking of this discussion, we actually use mindful moment.
Ah, right, the AI analysis tool.
Yeah, it's designed to prompt reflection, find those nuances in the text. It definitely helped flag some key themes and moments we should probably talk about.
Sounds good. So where do we start? That first big scene, maybe, in her father's hall.
Yes. Let's dive in there. You have this huge assembly, right? Nymphs, river gods, sea nymphs, even titans like Oceanus. Selene shows up, Boreas.
It's a real who's who of the older divine powers,
Mm-hmm.
but notably,
No Zeus, no Olympians.
right, they're absent, rumored to be off somewhere else, engaged in, well, tormenting someone.
Which already tells you something about the power structures, doesn't it? This kind of division.
Definitely. It suggests things aren't quite as unified as you might imagine. Fractures exist, even among the divine.
And then right there, amidst all this grandeur, you get the scene with Prometheus.
Ooh, yeah, that's intense. The fury, the whip, the
There's-
silence.
The silence is what gets me. All these powerful beings, they're watching, they're curious, even pushing to get a better look.
But no one steps in. No one says a word against it.
It raises questions, right, about what holds them together. Is it just power and maybe fear, not any sense of like collective responsibility?
It certainly doesn't seem like it in that moment. It feels very self-serving, or at least indifferent.
But then you have Circe, amidst all that brutality and indifference.
She does something incredibly simple. She offers him nectar.
Just a small act.
Yeah.
But the way he responds, his gratitude, it feels huge in that context.
It really does. It's like this tiny spark of something else. Kindness, maybe? Empathy. A counterpoint to all the raw power being displayed.
And what Prometheus says to her later about bold actions versus bold manners.
Oh, right. That's such an insightful line. He sees something genuine in her, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Beyond just appearances.
Yeah. And their little exchange about why a god would choose suffering. His line, not all gods need to be the same.
Mm-hmm. That opens up a lot, suggesting maybe divinity isn't monolithic. There are different ways to be a god.
But then she tells her brother Aetes about it.
And his reaction is, well, typical Aetes, maybe. Pragmatic, dismissive.
Totally. Tells her to basically shut up about it, don't talk about it, dad might find out.
Yeah, the fear of the patriarch, of Helios, it really underscores how oppressive that family dynamic is.
Makes you think, even a simple act of kindness is seen as dangerous, maybe even subversive in that world.
Absolutely. It has to be kept secret.
Then we shift scenes later on to Persephone's wedding, another layer of these hierarchies.
Right. You've got the radiant bride, Pasiphae, all the nymphs,
Yeah.
eager, buzzing, titans passing through.
And then way off at the edge, the mortals.
Ah, yes. The mortals. Looking terrified, pretty much.
You get the sense they know the stories, right? What happens when mortals and gods mix too closely? There's this huge gulf between them.
Palpable fear. It hangs in the air.
Yeah.
And then contrasting that, you see the Olympians arrive.
Apollo, Artemis, Hephaestus, Poseidon, Demeter.
They just radiate power, don't they? Polished, almost untouchable. It's a different kind of presence than the older titans.
Yeah.
More ordered, perhaps.
Definitely. And amidst all this divine spectacle, Aetes spots a mortal.
Daedalus, the craftsman.
And he's fascinated, sees him as this marvel, almost godlike in his skill.
Which is interesting, given the usual divine arrogance towards mortals.
Hmm.
But then Aetes immediately frames it in terms of his own ambition.
Right. I'll collect glories like him when I'm king. And then he just casually dismisses Circe's future like it's nothing.
Yeah, the patriarchal assumptions are just laid bare there.
Yeah.
How she's expected to just fit in or be married off.
It makes her later journey, finding her own power, even more compelling, doesn't it? Pushing against all that.
Absolutely. And that journey really starts to pick up pace around this time. Her reflecting on herself, her limitations.
And then she meets Glaucus, the mortal sailor.
A real turning point. Her interactions with him are so different. She's almost naive about simple things like bread. but genuinely interested in him, his life.
He gives her compliments, simple things, but they mean so much to her compared to the, dazzling but perhaps empty praise of the gods.
You see this real affection growing. Small gestures, shared moments. It feels human.
But then the reality check hits. He realizes how old she truly is, that she's immortal.
And that chasm opens up between them. The difference in lifespans and experience, it becomes unavoidable.
She reflects on her life before him, how empty it felt, her mother's cruel words, and this love for Glaucus becomes everything.
Which drives her to do something drastic. She starts asking about changing him, making a mortal into a god.
Her mother just laughs it off, basically. But Circe persists. She asks about pharmaca.
That word.
Yeah.
It's significant, isn't it? Aedes used it earlier. It hints at something different from innate divine power. Something learned, maybe? Crafted?
Like witchcraft, essentially. So she starts seeking knowledge, subtly questioning her uncles at banquets.
Playing the game, using her wits.
Yep.
And eventually she finds what she needs.
She transforms Glaucus, and initially it seems like this triumph of love. He becomes a god, builds his underwater palace.
But divinity changes him. Or maybe reveals something that was always there. He becomes, well, like the other gods, in a way.
Yeah. Then comes the casual mention of Scylla, this beautiful nymph he's now interested in. Oblivious, it seems, to Circe's feelings.
Just utterly devastating for her. And then Scylla herself delivers the final blow, revealing Glaucus proposed to her, the other nymphs mocking Circe.
And that's when Circe snaps. That impulsive act, using her power again, but this time differently, transforming Scylla.
Which immediately brings down the wrath of her family. Her father's words, anyone like you. So dismissive, so cutting.
But she stands up to him, defiantly, and then, surprisingly,
Aedes steps in, defends her, sort of, by claiming he has similar powers back in Colchis.
Right, he talks about his golden fleece, dragons, basically saying, this kind of magic, it's not that unusual, Dad. Maybe trying to protect himself, too.
Could be. But it results in Circe being singled out. Aedes leaves, dismissing her act of kindness to Prometheus as foolish.
And Circe is banished, sent into exile on her island, Aea. Alone.
But that exile, it becomes the making of her, doesn't it? That's where she truly discovers herself.
Yeah, she starts experimenting. Small things at first, bringing a flower back to life, learning about herbs, illusions.
Honing her craft, understanding the nature of her specific magic, her pharmaca. It's not just innate power, it's knowledge practice.
She finds real satisfaction in it, doesn't she? The weaving, especially. She compares it to witchcraft itself.
Finding purpose in solitude. But solitude doesn't mean total isolation forever. She has encounters.
Like the wild boar. And then her lioness companion arrives. A different kind of relationship, built on mutual respect, maybe protection.
And then Hermes starts visiting.
Ah, Hermes. Always turning up. Their interactions are interesting, witty, intelligent, but also a power dynamic there, too.
Definitely. But you see Circe growing more confident, setting boundaries, not just being passively swept along. She's learning to navigate these divine encounters on her own terms.
She also starts seeing more mortals arrive on her shores. It gives her a different perspective, maybe, seeing their diversity compared to the often similar gods.
Like when Minos' ship arrives carrying Talos, the bronze giant, a reminder of Daedalus' skill.
And then her sister, Pasiphae, needs her help.
Oh, the Minotaur incident. That's a dark chapter. Circe helps, but she's clearly conflicted about the monstrosity being born.
And Daedalus is there again, building the labyrinth. He seems trapped, too, in his own way, longing for freedom.
Their conversations are quite revealing. Circe starts to see her sister's manipulations more clearly, maybe realizing her own past naivete.
That final confrontation between the sisters is powerful. Circe rejecting Pasiphae's cruelty.
And Pasiphae's justification, claiming her monstrosity is just a tool for survival in a world ruled by gods like Zeus and Helios. It's twisted, but you almost see her logic.
Almost. Circe doesn't buy it, and Daedalus leaves, grateful for Circe's help, both understanding their constraints.
So Circe returns to her island, embraces her solitude again, deepens her practice. Gardening, spells, weaving, dying, finding a rhythm.
Pasiphae's bitterness when she visits later just highlights how much Circe has grown beyond that old family dynamic.
Yeah, the accusations of witchcraft don't land the same way. Circe knows who she is now.
But then, more visitors. Jason and Medea.
Yes, Medea, another practitioner of pharmaca, desperate, ruthless, clinging to Jason.
Circe sees the danger, recognizes perhaps a darker path her own magic could have taken.
And then Elise arrives, hunting for Medea. furious that Circe let her go.
That final conversation between them, Circe seeing the similarities between her brother and Medea, that unyielding nature.
And then silence again, a long period of solitude. She's powerful, self-sufficient, but there's a sense of longing for connection.
Which sets the stage for Odysseus.
The big one. His arrival changes everything again. A mortal, but one unlike any she's known. Cunning, resilient, a storyteller.
Their relationship is so complex, the power shifts back and forth. First, her turning his men into pigs.
Standard witch behavior for unexpected guests, apparently.
But then she changes them back, and he stays for a long time.
He tells her his stories, Troy, his wanderings. Captivating stuff.
There's clearly a connection and intimacy, but there's always this shadow.
Penelope, his wife, his home, Ithaca.
He talks about her constantly. Circe knows deep down that he'll leave, that this is temporary.
Which must be painful after finally finding that connection again. Eventually he does leave.
Leaving her alone once more, but not for long.
Right. Turns out their time together had consequences. Telemachus is born.
Raising a mortal child as an immortal goddess, that's a whole new challenge. His vulnerability, his needs, it's all-consuming.
She becomes fiercely protective, especially after she has a vision, a threat from a god.
Athena, right. She tries everything to shield him, to ward off divine interference.
But the gods intrude anyway. Hermes brings warnings, Apollo tries to impose nymphs on her.
Which she manages to get rid of. Her defiance is still strong.
But the world keeps coming to her shores. Hostile sailors arrive again and again.
And she deals with them, brutally, transforming them. But you sense her weariness growing, this endless cycle of violence.
Until one leader arrives who's different. They actually talk, make a truce, sworn by the Styx. A moment of peace, maybe?
A brief one, because then another ship arrives carrying Odysseus' son.
Telemachus.
Yeah.
But not her Telemachus. This is the older one, from Ithaca, searching for news of his father.
Talk about complicated family reunions. She observes him, this echo of Odysseus, but also someone distinct.
And he tells his story. Odysseus' return, the slaughter of the suitors, the mess left behind in Ithaca. It wasn't a simple heroic homecoming.
No, it wasn't. The legacy is heavy. And then
Penelope arrives, Odysseus' wife, on Circe's island.
Can you imagine the tension, the grief, the suspicion, the shared connection to Odysseus hanging between them?
It's an uneasy truce. Cautious interactions.
Until Hermes turns up again, honestly. That guy to reveal that her son, Telegonus, whom the outline seems to have conflated with Telemachus initially, but it's Telegonus who is Circe's son, is the one prophesied to kill Odysseus. And he reveals Telegonus' parentage, adjusting based on the book's plot, not just the outline summary.
Right, Telegonus. And he eventually does fulfill that prophecy, tragically and accidentally, which leads Telemachus and Penelope back to Circe's island, seeking refuge after Odysseus' death. Further book plot clarification.
Okay, so after all this turmoil, loss, and these complex relationships spanning lifetimes, Circe starts to really contemplate her own existence, her immortality.
She's lived so long, seen so much. And maybe she starts to wonder if there's another way, a different kind of life.
She makes a monumental choice to seek out mortality.
Going to Hecate, basically asking to give up her divinity. It's huge.
Then that final confrontation with her father, Helios, asserting her will, choosing her own path, completely rejecting his world.
It's the culmination of her entire journey. And she prepares to leave Aiaia, her home for centuries. She even finds one of Daedalus's creations.
An automaton, right. A little piece of mortal ingenuity left behind.
And then the voyage with Telemachus, who she eventually partners with. They face Scylla one last time.
But this time, Circe doesn't use raw power. She uses cunning, mortal ingenuity, transforms sheep as a distraction.
Showing how much she's changed, how she values different kinds of strength now.
They arrive in a new land. Telemachus promises her a life together, a mortal life.
And that's where her story, as we have it, finds its peace. An embrace of the finite, the human, the chosen connection.
It's such a profound journey, reflecting on this, especially thinking back to how mindful moments helped pinpoint these themes. It really highlights that transformation from overlooked nymph to powerful witch, and finally to choosing humanity.
It really does. Her story challenges so many assumptions about power, happiness, and what makes a life meaningful.
Which really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? What kind of power, maybe in our own lives, truly resonates? And what are we willing to choose? What prices are we willing to pay? for the life we want.
That's definitely something to chew on. It's a story that stays with you.
Absolutely. So if you found this conversation interesting, we hope you'll subscribe to the show for more discussions like this.
Yeah, maybe share with someone else who loves mythology or just a really good story. And if you haven't read Circe, we highly recommend it. Check out the link if you'd like to purchase it.
And most importantly, just keep thinking critically, about the stories we read and the ideas that shape how we see the world.
Well said.
Yeah.
Until next time.